Story 1. I told her I liked her, and she gently rejected me. I explained that I wasn't sure I could be just a friend and decided to distance myself from her. After about a week, she reached out, expressing how much she missed me. Then, she posted on social media about how she couldn't talk to the person she wanted to talk to most. Feeling wanted like that made me cave, and I started talking to her again. That led to probably the most agonizing year of my life. Our friendship grew closer, and my feelings became stronger. We spent all our free time talking on the phone and being together. We often slept in each other's beds and met each other's families. This intimacy led to occasional physical moments, but she was clear that she didn't want to be romantically involved. It was an incredibly fulfilling friendship until I wanted to make it more or she interacted with another romantic interest. At those times, I felt lower than dirt. My self-esteem was completely shattered, and other areas of my life weren't great either. I was in a seriously dark place, and she was often my only relief. She got a boyfriend, and I moved to the other side of the country, using that as an opportunity to try to live without her. Surprisingly, it was easy. After about a month of not talking to her, I noticed how little I thought about her. Previously, all my idle thoughts would lead back to her. After 6 months, she was in the same category as my other old friends I barely talked to. After about a year, I experienced some changes in my life. I moved back home, restarted school, got a job, and began working out and eating better. My life was rapidly improving. Then, she called me out of the blue about a year after I decided to stop talking to her. We talked on the phone for probably 2 hours. I realized how much I missed her and what I missed about her. We had a really nice conversation, and for the first time since shortly after I met her, I didn't feel a desire for her. Instead, I felt that pleasant warmth that comes after a nice conversation with a friend. I was walking home while we talked, and suddenly the call cut out. Normally, we would rush to call each other back. But this time, I decided not to, and apparently, she felt the same way. It was fine. The warm feeling didn't fade, nor did it turn into craving. The very next day, I met my current girlfriend, and we've been together for the past 10 years. We still follow each other on social media. There are times when I miss the intimacy I had with her, but there are also times when she feels like just a person from my past. Ultimately, I'm grateful for the relationship I had with her. It forced me to confront myself and my flaws in a meaningful way, leading to the changes I needed to make. Those changes helped shape me into the person who could start a new, healthy relationship. Story 2. The friendship ended that day. It is difficult to remain friends with someone for whom you have feelings while seeing them date other people. Story 3. I told her I needed some space, and she said she understood. She did not. She confronted me one day and kept saying, "Oh, come on, it's not that bad. I've been rejected. I know what it's like. You're just upset that you're not getting what you want," implying that I only wanted to sleep with her. I told her no. I had developed real feelings for her and that it was fine if she didn't feel the same way, but I wanted to keep my distance so I could move on. That was not good enough for her. Then she said something that was the icing on the cake. "When you asked me out, it reminded me of the time I took a photo with Sidney Crosby. I wanted him so much, but I knew he was way out of my league and was probably dating someone much prettier. I just looked at her for a few seconds. Then she saw a guy she found attractive and asked me to introduce her to him. I told her to leave me alone, and that seemed to do the trick." Story 4. I moved on with my life, made other friends, and dated other women. Someone who wants to maintain the friendship as it is essentially saying that they enjoy a dynamic where you are more invested in it than they are. Story 5. It was unusual because she never openly rejected me until my birthday. Looking back, it seems she just enjoyed the attention and support I offered. I tried to repair things, but she didn't want to talk. She rejected me right before a trip to Berlin. Within 3 days, we went from talking every day for about 2 years to complete silence. It hurt, but she has the right not to like me, and I have the right to move on. However, many confusing things happened that left me bewildered. A dance that felt more significant, being extra affectionate to reggaeton music, and a quick kiss. After that, I fell for her, but she wanted to go back. It was too late. It's difficult to lose someone, but that's life. Story 6. I cried and then I accepted it and moved on. She experienced hardships with the next guy and later wanted to tell me what a great person I was or reconnect. This happened several times. My advice is to have a little farewell for the relationship at whatever stage, but understand that she would be there if she truly wanted you. Move on to someone who really values you. Story 7. I moved on and met someone who wanted to be with me. We are now married. The first girl became jealous, and I found out through friends that she was essentially waiting for us to break up. She was never disrespectful towards my new girlfriend or tried anything, though. We belonged to the same friend group, and after about 3 years of it being awkward, both of our interests had changed so much that neither of us was into the other anymore. I would call us friends, but it is not someone I would hang out with one-on-one. To say I didn't feel vindicated when I was the one not interested in her all those years ago would be a lie. Story 8. I guess this is somewhat of a follow-up to this. Nothing happened. She moved on to someone else and is happy. I moved on as well. I wasn't doing well mentally, as I still liked her a lot back then. I figured that distancing myself would be the best thing for me. Almost a year has passed now. I'm doing okay with a GPA of 3.7, which admittedly took a hit during the semester when I was talking to her. I picked up a new hobby, which is playing guitar. I'm still not very good at it, though. My collection of metal music and video games expanded threefold over the last year. So, to summarize, I'm doing okay. I'm content with being alone now. Story 9. I said goodbye and moved on. Since I meant what I said, I stuck to the decision. Nothing happened with her from that time on. I continued my life, and things have continued to improve. Story 10. We don't talk anymore. She has a boyfriend, and we only follow each other on social media with no communication. I can't be friends with a woman I am attracted to and interested in, especially after being rejected. I am not saying she had to be with me or that I am entitled to her. I would rather go my own way and let things be. Story 11. There are 2 outcomes I have experienced. One response is, "That's fine, we'll talk when you're ready." And we do end up talking again down the road, once I have moved on. They are close friends now. Another response is, "So you only wanted to be friends to try and pursue me?" This is very inaccurate, but good luck explaining that to them. We are not friends anymore. The third type is the one that won't actually give you space, but I have only seen that scenario. I have not experienced it. It always ends badly. Story 12. I distanced myself to get over my feelings for her and went no contact. Mutual friends asked what was going on, and I told them. One of them informed her. She tried to relay a message to me through that friend, but I said I didn't want to hear it. I've moved on and found someone else. We're not dating, just talking right now. I don't know what she's up to these days and have no desire to know. I don't hate her or dislike her. I just don't care to know where she is or how it has been for her. Story 13. She asked me why I stopped initiating conversations with her, and I told her that if we weren't going to be together, I wasn't interested. She stopped talking to me after that. Story 14. It wasn't the rejection that made me put distance between us, but the fact that something almost happened. Then suddenly, there was another boyfriend a month after the last, and she thought we could just go back to being friends after we saw each other naked. That wasn't for me. Story 15. I moved out of town to pursue a different career shortly after. We stayed in touch, but I ended up in a relationship and worked away for a few years. When I returned home, I caught up with her, had coffee, and we talked about our pseudo-romantic moment as if to say, that was silly. Story 16. Nothing happened. The outcome provided me with the space to move on, and we never spoke again. For the best, truly. Story 17. I ghosted her after she said she only saw me as a friend. About 14 months later, we reconnected right before my birthday and grabbed lunch together. It was nothing romantic. We were simply catching up. I kept it minimal for a couple of months and then sent her a text asking to go on a date, making it clear that it wasn't as friends. She agreed, and we started officially dating after the second date a week later. 10 years later, we're married with an 18-month-old boy and a girl on the way. Honestly, I'm not sure we would have made it if she had agreed the first time. We did a lot of growing in that year, both experiencing failed relationships that helped us figure out what we wanted in the next one. Story 18. She became infatuated when I moved on and found someone else. She didn't want me, but she didn't want me to be with someone who did. I blocked her on all social media platforms. Story 19. It just happened. After 4 years, she started messaging me again. It didn't take long to find out that it was for money. Story 20. I waited too long to confess my feelings for her, and I ended up in the friend zone, which I caused myself. When I finally confessed, she rejected me. And that's when I realized that being her friend while my feelings weren't reciprocated was too painful. It became self-inflicted misery. It's unfortunate for her that she lost a friend, and I regret waiting so long to express my feelings. However, ending the friendship was ultimately better for my happiness. I ran into her a couple of years ago, between two COVID-19 waves. She's still single, but she seems happy, which is good for her. We chatted briefly, wished each other the best, and that was it. I have a girlfriend now, whom I love more than I ever loved my previous crush. Story 21. Recently, after a 4-year relationship, I met a woman on a backpacking trip, and we were inseparable. We talked about pretty much everything. When religion came up, I told her I was an atheist and she was Catholic. We hung out 5 or 6 times after returning from the trip, and I wanted to pursue a relationship. She told me she didn't want to continue due to my religious beliefs. I wished her well. She said she wanted to remain friends, but I told her that just as she had every right to say no to dating, I also had the right to not remain friends. I wished her well, and that was the last time we spoke. We have both moved on and married our respective spouses. Story 22. We moved on from each other. I enlisted in the military primarily to get out of the rut I was in, including her, but not solely for her. She became involved with some unsavory crowds, and the last I heard, she checked into rehabilitation after an almost fatal overdose. It has been 16 years since those events, and we haven't really spoken since. To my knowledge, she is alive, but I cannot say anything more than that. Story 23. Nothing. She confessed her love for me a few years later when she was dealing with her insecurities. Now we just say, I love you, and I miss you, once a year on our birthdays and don't communicate otherwise. Story 24. I was infatuated with a girl when I was about 18. We had known each other for a few years as children, but as we started getting older, I began to see her differently. I confessed my feelings to her after about a year of crushes and probably came on a bit stronger than I should have. But she didn't feel the same way. Rather than being mature about it, I kept hanging around, hoping she would change her mind. I bought her little gifts and did her small favors, which was quite cringeworthy. She started seeing another guy, but even then, I wouldn't let it go. I kept telling myself that it wouldn't last between them and that I would be there when it didn't. Eventually, about 10 months after she rejected me, she had to tell me to leave her alone. We never spoke again after that. Strangely enough, the forced no contact was pretty much what I needed, and I got over it after a couple of months. I don't really blame her for that. In hindsight, I was immature and put her in a really uncomfortable position. I feel a little ashamed of how I acted, but I remind myself that I was still basically a kid, and that was nearly 13 years ago. Sometimes I think about reaching out and apologizing, but I know it's really for my own sake rather than to genuinely mend anything. Interestingly enough, she is now married and has a child with that guy. So much for that they won't last 6 months attitude I had back then. Story 25. I left, waited a couple of months, got rejected again, and moved 200 miles away. A year went by and she came to me. We got married and divorced soon afterward. Story 26. She moved away and I moved on. I met a woman who has been a much better fit for my life, with whom I have built a great life. Story 27. Cut all contact once she got involved with the guy who told me nothing would happen. She is a single mother now. Story 28. She keeps trying to get in touch and asks backhanded questions like, I'm getting married. Should I invite you? I don't have any interest in maintaining the friendship anymore. As I was hurt by expecting her replies and getting my hopes up, I no longer have feelings and have decided to cut her off completely. as she doesn't really offer anything to the friendship. Story 29. The outcome has been peace and quiet, creating a wonderful life. There are no mixed feelings or rejection now that she is no longer in my life. I no longer wonder or think about her at all. There are no more awkward hugs or daydreaming. My life is significantly better than it was when she was around. I get to live each day without distraction. I can confidently say it has been a great decision to not have her or any other women around lately. Story 30. It was best for both of us at the time, and it wouldn't have made either of us happy if we had gone with it then. She had a point. She contacted me years later and apologized for how she handled it. We are physically distant friends but still in touch. We can still finish each other's sentences. Story 31. She ended up getting back with her abusive ex about a month later. A few months after that, I realized I hadn't heard from her in a few days, so I tried to send her a message to check in. Then I discovered she had blocked me on everything. Story 32. Small town. She met and married a prominent resident. I met someone, got engaged, and invited the prominent resident and Miss Rejection to our wedding. They attended the reception and stayed until the end, enjoying the bar and food. No wedding gift. We were invited to their housewarming party and brought them a cheap gift. I proceeded to drink all of his Chateauneuf du Pape. It was awesome. Story 33. She returned years later after I improved myself and tried to be with me. She became upset when I rejected her. Story 34. The outcome is that we were no longer friends. Are you still hoping she will realize what she missed out on? Story 5 indertig, was en my metiens. We both apparently liked each other. However, she also really liked my brother and had made that very obvious. We had a slightly tumultuous friendship prior to me really falling for her. She made it clear that while she would like to get together, she couldn't promise not to try to sleep with my brother. I ended up distancing myself, even though we were often in the same places, and rekindled other friendships I had let lapse in pursuit of her. It took me a while to mend my self-esteem, but I would say I'm getting there. Now, I have an amazing wife whom I have been married to for 7 years, and she is incredible. I also have a much better relationship with my brother, who is now one of my best friends. Looking back, it was a toxic friendship. My only regret is not ending it sooner, as I think I would have had a much happier teenage and younger adult life. However, in the end, it all led to me finding my wife, and I wouldn't have wanted to change that for anything. Story 36. She spent 6 months trying to be with me because she couldn't handle the rejection. Story 37. I waited too long to tell her. We had known each other for 7 years and been close friends for 3. By that point, I had started developing feelings, and as soon as that happened, her mother was diagnosed with cancer. I decided I wouldn't tell her until things got better. Unfortunately, things did not improve, and eventually, she passed away. I felt like I needed to be there as a friend for her, even though my feelings were intense. During that time, she had an active romantic and sexual life and would confide in me about it. I would see her making out with guys in front of me when we went out. She would tell me when she liked someone, when she had sex, when she was going on a date, and so on. This was painfully difficult and continued for over a year. When she got better, I decided to confess my feelings, knowing the answer would likely be no. To my surprise, she said she had liked me even before I did but had always tried to suppress it. Now that I had told her, she wanted to see where it could lead. I was over the moon, but shortly after, she stopped texting me or asking to hang out. I felt I had to initiate everything. When we were together, she was extremely cold and uncomfortable, and I felt terrible. I didn't understand anything. After a month, she said she had thought about it and wanted to remain just friends. Nothing significant happened between us during that time. She said she still liked me and knew she was making a mistake but wasn't ready for a relationship. Mutual friends told me she opened a dating app the very next day, made out with a guy that same weekend, and got into a relationship 3 weeks later. A couple of days later, I asked for distance. She said she understood, and we haven't seen or talked to each other since. That was 8 months ago. Meanwhile, some friends shared things she did and said during that month we were supposedly dating that hurt me deeply. I don't know if I'll ever be able to go back to normal with her. Story 38. I deleted her number and messages and tried my best to forget about her right away. She was a great person overall, and under different circumstances, I would love to be friends with her. However, my attraction to her was so strong that I couldn't handle it after the rejection. It helps that I didn't know her very well, and things might have been different if we had been established friends beforehand. I haven't heard from or talked to her since. We run in the same circles, so I'm sure I will see her around again. I wish her well. Story 39. She didn't outright reject me. She just didn't believe my side of the story. She told me she did, but then stopped speaking to me. We caught up a couple of times over the following years, but it was always just cordial. The last time I spoke to her, I was 21. She had a string of bad relationships and was coming to the realization that she had been let down in her education. She was trying to go to college, but it wasn't working out. I never saw or spoke to her after that day. She visited my roommate and me because my roommate was interested in her twin sister. I looked her up on Facebook recently, and she seems to be married and raising her husband's children. It appears she has one biological child of her own. She seems to be on the same cycle she was on when she was 19. I feel a bit sorry for her. She doesn't seem to have grown since our teenage years. Story 40. I had a good line and broke it off. She was shaken. We stayed distant for a few months. She realized she couldn't live without me. Now we have 5 children, 10 years into the best years of my life. Story 41. We stopped talking around November 2022, right after our thesis was approved. I got a new job and adopted a different lifestyle. From what some mutual friends told me, she initially didn't care at all. She often bragged about knowing she was attractive and that friends and boyfriends were something she would never miss. Right now, however, she is acting very cold, trying to become an influencer to receive gifts and promotions. Back in July, I attempted to reach out to her to see if we could talk again, but I was immediately blocked and received a threat from her twin, telling me to never contact them again. One reason I believe she did this is that she is afraid I could reveal how she got her current job, something she confided in me back then. Long story short, her father helped her secure a job in a state office, which is illegal, and she is being well compensated. Sometimes I do miss her, but I also remember the really negative aspects. Her ignorance, overwhelming dependency, inability to accept her mistakes and learn from them, her calls at 3 a.m. to speak nonsense, her irresponsibility, and more. She was my best friend since 2019, and I genuinely couldn't have asked for someone better back then. Now, I just don't care what happens to her. Story 42. Long story short, everyone knew I liked this particular person. I had not had a chance to tell her myself. We were all out one night as a group, and they all left one by one to give us space. They told her before I caught up with the group to let me down gently. She did and was very sweet about it. I told her I liked her and she wanted me in a particular place in her life. It ended on good terms for about an hour, and then she left with another guy in the group. They were together all night, and for the next few weeks, he cheated on her and eventually left her for another girl who was doing the same thing. They ended up getting engaged. How did I cope? I felt devastated at first, but after hearing all of that, I felt relieved that I dodged a bullet. Since then, I have been very wary about people and situations like that. I have been happily single and have been building a healthy life around people whom I trust and value, and who see me in the same light. Story 43. It wasn't obvious to me at the time, but I was her backup plan. I got rejected, and later ran into her on the way to pick up my girlfriend. The moment she heard I was seeing someone, she suddenly wanted me. She made it clear that if I blew off my girlfriend, she would take me home. I went and picked up my girlfriend. That was the best decision ever. I ran into her about 2 years later with her baby, while I was with my now fiancé. She didn't look like she'd had a good run. The other girl involved was someone I had a college course with. She was very flirty with me right in front of my girlfriend, who took it surprisingly well. Although we had good conversations, I had moved on from her. She ended up being very respectful of my relationship. It's funny because we always had great chemistry and nearly got together several times. However, She dumped me right before a dance in 8th grade, and the guy she left me for ended up being unkind, playing a prank on her. She carried a lot of guilt for that. Story 44. I had a different situation occur. I distanced myself from her after I entered a relationship because she began to push inappropriate boundaries. Story 45. It wasn't the rejection you probably think it was. It was more about her giving up on 4 years of a great friendship. She did what I warned her against, but she always said she was a self-saboteur. When we talked after all the drama, I felt like the friendship was over. It had run its course and that was it. I slowly stopped texting and calling her. I said goodbye one day and that was it. Do I miss her? For sure. Do I miss all that pointless drama? No. Story 46. She called me childish. While she didn't reject me, she wouldn't respect my boundaries regarding what is and isn't appropriate for a friendship. My stated goal from the beginning was to pursue a romantic or sexual relationship with her. She declined that and suggested we should only be friends. I was okay with that. She's a fun person, albeit a bit of a mess, so I felt I dodged a bullet. However, she kept wanting girlfriend treatment without me receiving any benefits of being a boyfriend. I told her to stop and she agreed, but after this happened about 3 times over the course of a month and didn't change, I explained that this is not a healthy relationship. Since she wouldn't respect my boundaries, I decided to end it. I blocked her and now have no idea where she is or what she's doing. I hope she is okay, but that's about it. Story 47. We started studying in different cities that month, so geographically it was easy. We have met at parties about 4 times since, and I got to meet her boyfriend. They seemed like a great match to me. Story 48. I stopped talking to her and then blocked her. She never reached out despite how close we were, so there is no loss. Story 49. If you are respectful and a good person, your female friend may eventually realize that she took you for granted. This realization can happen before it's too late, or sometimes it may not. Story 50. I didn't really get rejected directly, but when she told me she had a relationship with another guy, I distanced myself from her. Then she started behaving oddly, trying to convince me to do small favors or asking me questions that could easily be answered with a quick search. She suddenly became nicer and even asked why I was talking to her less. I felt self-doubt and wrote her a long message expressing that I had loved her for a long time, since she knew about my painful rejection several years ago. She responded with something disrespectful, suggesting that my personality was dark and that I should forget my feelings for her, which made me furious. 2 weeks later, she liked one of my posts, and in response, I made a sarcastic post about her, which led to her blocking me. It's a pity I didn't express my anger more directly, but it doesn't matter anymore since I've left my country and severed connections with my fellow countrymen. I'm still single abroad, but my life is perfect in this new country. Even my parents agree it's the best decision I've made, and I'm living my best life here. They only hope I can find a local girlfriend in the future. Update. She married another guy, and after some reflection, I believe we were never suited for a relationship. I also feel lucky that I dodged a bullet. Story 51. Rejected. Generally nothing. This is the best case. Excommunicating. This has happened multiple times over drama, such as trying to put an ex and me in the same place without warning. Generally, they try to take friends, lie about the situation, and create splinter groups, and it never ends. The splinter group is a spite group that creates more drama. Sometimes I receive apologies from people who were friends but decided to side with the manipulative person. It turns out the manipulative person is not a good person. Surprise, surprise. However, I am not holding anything against them. I just want a clean separation between the groups. Story 52. The most recent situation was complicated. I can't say she outright rejected me, but from the start, I sensed she didn't find me attractive, which was the primary reason for her disinterest. Others in our social circle noticed how we interacted and asked both of us about it. Separately, she frequently contacted me via text. I spent many afternoons and even evenings at her place chatting. She confided in me about deeply personal matters and would send texts saying, "I had a lovely time in the morning." She casually suggested going on trips and attending events together, not realizing that those are typically activities I reserve for a partner, not a friend. However, after getting close, something shifted. I believe she either grew closer to another woman and started developing feelings for her, which caused her to invest less time in me, or she realized that one or both of us had developed feelings and didn't want that outcome, so she pulled away. A few weeks later, she would reappear and attempt to talk to me, invite me out, but then would often cancel. She would later express that she missed or wanted to see me, yet when I reciprocated her sentiments, she would ghost me for 2 weeks. I wanted to talk to her and understand what was happening, but whenever I tried to discuss it, she would avoid the topic. I attempted to bring up how others noticed our dynamic, but she was unwilling to address that either. I just wanted to manage perceptions so that we both understood our shared experiences with these questions and could address them consistently with a mutual understanding. But she would not have that conversation. This has dragged on for months. There are times she doesn't contact me, making me feel unimportant in her life, and then suddenly, she reaches out. We might attend an event we planned long ago, but then I wouldn't hear from her for weeks. Recently, I chose to ignore her due to her behavior, which made me want space, and she became annoyed, despite having ghosted or ignored me on numerous occasions. This completely unfair treatment. So yes, it is still ongoing and unresolved. All I want is closure and a chance to discuss our feelings or whatever caused the tension between us, so we can understand each other and communicate honestly in the future without hiding behind uncertainty. To summarize, there is no resolution yet. It remains unresolved and awkward until she matures enough to have that conversation with me. I find it perplexing why she keeps coming back and contacting me if there isn't something worth salvaging. The logical course of action would be to forget about each other and move on with our lives. I have tried to do that, but I can't understand why she hasn't. Story 53. Distance allowed the sheen of infatuation to diminish and gave me a better perspective. Sometimes it meant that we were better off as friends than as romantic partners. At other times, distance revealed that the friendship I was being offered was completely one-sided. In every instance, it left me open to other opportunities, and I am grateful for that. Story 54. I realized she wasn't going to try to talk to me again, so we catch up about 4 times a year when we see each other. Story 55. She would occasionally reach out to me every few years, expressing how much she missed me and suggesting we meet up. I would usually oblige her. Then I noticed a pattern. She would only reach out when she was recently single, indicating that I was the person she turned to for comfort and validation. I have since deleted her from my social media, and since everything is private, she cannot see anything about me. Story 56. The first person later apologized for her bluntness in rejecting me. It was no big deal. I had already moved on. For a while, we bumped into each other here and there and chatted like acquaintances. There was no spark whatsoever. The second person kept contacting me, but only when she was rejected by someone else. I had to tell her rather harshly not to reach out to me unless she wanted a sexual relationship. Not surprisingly, I have not heard from her since. I have no hard feelings toward the first person, but I consider the second one an emotional leech. Story 57. I knew a girl I liked in college. Once I made it clear that I liked her more than just as a friend, she rejected me and put me in the friend zone. I told her I did not want to be just a friend to her, so we stopped all communication. We lost touch, and after a few months, we ran into each other. We started dating this time, but after a few weeks, she ended it. This process repeated itself 2 or 3 times until she moved across the country. Story 58. We met up with a mutual friend for sushi. That was the last time I heard from her. Our group of former coworkers has also drifted apart. Story 59. I reconnected with an acquaintance after about 10 years. We spent some time together, became good friends, and it took me longer than it should have to ask her out. She said no and let me down gently, providing some good reasons. It was tough, but my mindset was always, if they say no, that's outside my control. I can't worry about it. Just move on. So I did and distanced myself, no malice intended. I just needed my space to reset. We shared the same friend group, so I knew I would see her again soon. I simply stopped asking her to grab a beer or do random activities together. About a month later, I ran into her at a friend's get-together. I felt a little awkward, but just went with it. 3 weeks later, she asked me to grab a beer and asked me out. To sum it up, this Friday we will have been married for 10 years. Story 60. I connected with every female friend I desired, given enough time once I entered my 30s. Some relationships took 10 to 20 years to develop. I found that their personalities changed significantly from friendship to romantic partnership, and not for the better. Story 61. It only happened once so far, thankfully, and it worked out pretty well. Initially, we tried to ignore the awkwardness, and I attempted to set aside those feelings, but it wasn't working. Despite trying to establish boundaries, we were too immature to respect each other's, so I eventually decided to end the friendship clearly to move on. We bumped into each other just over a year ago and talked for the first time since then. She started dating someone about 13 or 14 years ago, finally went to college, and now works in public service. I decided to finish my university work and gave my dream job an honest shot. While it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, at least I got the answer I needed. Since then, I have been exploring other ways to achieve my goals and just live life. While I haven't really dated anyone since then, I'm okay with it since I learned much later about the issues I have. Story 62. She told everyone who knew us that I was begging for her affection, which was false. Then she kept saying that I tried to force myself upon her. Story 63. This just happened to me yesterday. We don't live near each other, but went to a festival with the same group of friends and flirted a lot. We talked on Instagram for the entire year. Then last year we attended the same festival together, and after flirting with her the whole night, I simply asked her out. She said she didn't see me in that light, so I suggested we stop flirting to avoid confusion. I unfollowed her and moved on with my life. Now, at the same festival again with the same group of friends, she randomly told me that since we are both close to the same group, she considers me family. This is surprising since I didn't talk to her the entire year. Ultimately, I think she misses the attention I gave her, but I value my mental well-being more. I'm too old to play these back-and-forth games and complicate my feelings. Story 64. We lost touch, but our parents are still friends. That's how I know she married a guy whom nobody really likes, and apparently that's why she spends all her time with his family. Story 65. I completely ignored her to protect myself because I was attracted to her. She tried to get my attention back numerous times, but I never gave in. She moved to another state after college. As a result, I don't take flirtatious women seriously. I just enjoy the attention and move on. Story 66. I am in love with one of my best friends who does not want me back. We have discussed at length how she loves me but not in that way. Our group dynamic is so complicated that I cannot have no contact with her. But it is difficult for me every day. I have sabotaged 2 potential relationships in the last year because there was a moment in both where I thought my friend and I could end up together. I feel like a fool. Story 67. An agonizing and toxic journey. I fell for her, but she didn't feel the same way. I would give myself a month or 2 of distance to move on, but whenever we started talking again, those feelings would come back stronger. I would give myself another 2 months, rinse and repeat. Initially, she was dismissive about it, asking why I couldn't get over her and wanting her friend back. We were best friends, and I think I was her only friend, so she missed talking about her boyfriends and friends with benefits with me. Of course, that depressed me and gave me suicidal thoughts. Later, she understood my feelings and even considered ending the friendship because she felt too bad that she couldn't reciprocate. Long story short, we are still best friends, and it's been 12 years. I only moved on 2 years ago. We had to establish significant boundaries to make the friendship work, like absolutely no talking about boyfriends, hookups, or friends with benefits unless it's serious issues. It's been working, and I'm slowly starting to see her more as a sister now. Story 68. I stopped being love-stricken and hoping for something to change, and it was the best decision I could have made. I became a better, stronger man, moved to a new place, got a better job, and married a woman 12 years younger than I am, who did not have narcissistic personality disorder or borderline personality disorder. The heartache was a blessing in disguise. Story 69. She rejected me because she said she didn't want to risk me going away since the kids liked me too much. I'm not going to lie, I'm still working on myself to become better. I had a troubled childhood, which led me to have a late start in adulthood, so I'm having to catch up. I still have strong feelings for her, and I want to believe she knows that I do. I understand it will be a while before those feelings fade. She comes over almost every day after work to either visit or pick up her oldest child. She brings a certain peace to my troubled mind and soul that is hard to find. I don't want to lose her, but as the days go on, I don't think it'll ever happen. Story 70. I was newly single when my friends pointed out a girl in the group. I thought she was cute, so I decided to stop feeling bad about my latest breakup and get ready to risk my heart again. We hung out, and I showcased my moves, spending as much time with her as I could. She seemed to respond well, but later she had a conversation with me and asked about my intentions. I told her plainly, but she didn't feel the same way. I said, "Okay, cool, thanks, see you," which surprised her. I wasn't engaging any further. Turns out she didn't handle rejection well. My cool demeanor and not chasing after her were apparently taken as a rejection. She would constantly approach me, trying to talk things out even after I had distanced myself. I had to tell her to leave me alone after the 20th time she tried reaching out. How did she respond? She hooked up with another guy in the group, got pregnant, and left with him. It turns out the guy was barely out of high school, and they struggled to live out of a garage at her aunt's house because she was undocumented and could only work at a local shop. I occasionally saw them at church, and she looked miserable. I was shocked to see the guy already losing his hair despite being younger than me. Eventually, he left her with the child, and she was single again. Later, when I organized a barbecue farewell party for a friend, I was surprised to find out she was invited. She dressed nicely that night, couldn't take her eyes off me, and gave me enticing looks. Even my friend noticed and said, "Hey, there's your chance." While I was tempted for a hookup, I decided against getting involved in the mess with her, especially not in raising another man's child. The last time I saw her, I didn't even recognize her at first. She spotted me at church, and I thought, was that her? I noticed she had put on some weight. I also didn't see her with the child anymore, so I don't know what happened there. Regardless, I've moved on. The moral of the story is that when some women reject you, what they really want is to play the convince me game, gauging your reaction. Either you show toxic masculinity and get upset, or you panic, beg her for a chance, chase after her, and fight for her affection. Also, women often want to be the ones to reject. They can't handle rejection themselves. This is why a breakup affects them differently. They are not used to being rejected or not being desired. When they play the chase me game, and you remain cool and aloof, it disrupts their expectations. Don't engage in these games. Walk away and save yourself the trouble. Story 71. We were friends in our freshman year of college, and although she transferred after that year, we stayed in touch. After we graduated, we hung out, and I shared my feelings but didn't make a move and got out of the car. A few months later, we hung out again, and I asked to kiss her goodnight. She said okay. We kissed, and she asked me to text her to let her know I got home safely. I received no answer. I texted her a few days later to see if she was busy, but again, there was no response. That was the last time I attempted to contact her, and she never reached out to me. A few months later, I unfriended her on Facebook and MySpace, although she wasn't very active on those platforms. That was over 15 years ago. I heard she started dating a guy, they had a child together, and eventually she married him. Sometimes I miss her, but I don't dwell on it too harshly. I hold no ill will towards her and hope she is truly happy. 5 years later, I met my children's mother, and we had a child a year and a half after that. Though that relationship ended, I will soon be getting engaged to my long-term girlfriend. Story 72. Well, she actually distanced herself from me and told many people about it shortly after. Nowadays, a few years later, we are still friends, but not like in the past. We talk now and then. We both moved on. I have a girlfriend, and she is engaged. Story 73. I became friends with her again, and we talked occasionally through some messages and calls. I matched with her best friend on a dating app, and she thought I did that to make her jealous. She called me a loser, so I unmatched her best friend and blocked her. Currently, I am talking to a girl who I think likes me. I believe it's a situationship. Story 74. The outcome was me dating and falling in love with my wife. Before I was married, I would talk to 2 or 3 people at once until I became exclusive with one of them. When I was talking to my wife, who at the time was just a friend, I was also communicating with another girl. I didn't distance myself from her. She distanced herself from me. When she did that, I concluded she wasn't interested in me romantically, so I focused on my wife, who was my friend at the time. After a month of talking, we started dating, and within 3 months, we were in a relationship. Today, we are married and have been for 4 years and together for 6. We have 3 children and a house. Story 75. We both moved on and mentally struggled for a while, but then stopped feeling anything. It is what it is. Story 76. I eventually found someone who recognized my value, but it took a long time. That being said, the best thing to do when you develop feelings is to confront the situation. Discovering that someone you care about does not feel the same is heartbreaking, especially when you don't receive interest from others and feel unable to move on while they are still present. There have been a couple of people who reached out years later, and we were able to restore our friendship. The others likely do not care whether I disappeared. I wasn't good enough then, and I am not good enough now. Story 77. I told her I liked her but was rejected. I then kept my distance while remaining civil and friendly during our conversations or when we hung out. We are now married and have 3 children. My advice is not to be foolish. If you have made your intentions clear by expressing your feelings and desire for a relationship, that is good. The rest is up to her. Move on and focus on other pursuits. If she decides she wants to pursue you after that, then that choice is yours, but do not let it take up unnecessary space in your mind. Story 78. I told her I liked her right after she became exclusive with another guy. When she informed me about her exclusivity, I was devastated. After a month or 2, I moved countries and didn't give her what she wanted most: to meet me one last time. I didn't do that. I just left and never looked back. Story 79. She was in my friend group and gently rejected me, only to reel me back in by second-guessing herself before rejecting me again. I ended up blocking her and moving on. I was going through a rough time, and I'm really glad it never happened. I know she was hurt from being blocked, but I needed to do it for my own well-being at the time. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.